times, but across northern areas it should remain largely dry. And the reason for this unsettled spell of weather is all thanks to low pressure swirling around, eventually bringing outbreaks of rain at first towards Northern Ireland this afternoon, eventually sweeping its way into parts of Wales, parts of Devon and Cornwall, and then moving its way eastwards across central and southern parts overnight. Once again, some quite heavy outbreaks of rain at times, turning quite blustery too, leading to quite a wet start across central areas and parts of the southeast. But across the far north of England, Scotland, later on in the night across Northern Ireland, it should remain largely dry with some clearer spells. So a little bit chillier here, but elsewhere it's going to be a largely mild night thanks to the cloud and outbreaks of rain. So a fairly wet start, particularly across parts of the southeast central areas. Still a chance of some heavy outbreaks, a few showers just clipping into Devon and Cornwall. But across Northern Ireland, a much drier start, plenty more clearer skies compared to this morning. And across Scotland, northern parts of England, a mix of cloud and some brighter spells, some showers and also some longer spells of rain, particularly across Northern Isles. So a bit of a mixed bag as we head into Wednesday morning. Any outbreaks of rain across the southern half of the UK, largely fizzling out through the morning, but it is going to leave behind plenty of clouds, still a chance of some light outbreaks of rain. A few more sunny spells across Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland, Northern England, but still can't rule out some showers here. Once again, these could be heavy at times, but where you catch the brighter weather, the sunshine, highs of around 17 Celsius, particularly across the southeast, so still feeling pleasant for the time of year. Through into the evening, we'll see once again a mix of clouds, still a few showers, eventually fizzling away across parts of Scotland, but some low clouds starting to edge its way into North Sea coast. And for the rest of the week, there is still a chance of rain, particularly in the west. Otherwise, plenty of dry weather and temperatures improving day by day. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and this is Dewbs & Co. Coming up tonight, the government has responded with a Supreme Court judgment. In fact, they've just finished talking about it in Parliament. Let's take a look at that. And finally, everyone, some good news. Yes, this is the kind of thing we want to hear. Many people will be breathing a sigh of relief tonight as it's confirmed that British Steel have halted the redundancy consultations that would have affected thousands of people. And speaking of steel and the like, is net zero the new Brexit in terms of Parliament being out of touch with public opinion? Nigel Farage thinks so. Do you agree? And common sense will prevail again. We're on a roll, ladies and gents. Data will finally capture which nationalities are committing crimes. Why have we had to wait so long for this? All of that and lots more alongside me, Esther McVeigh, the Conservative MP, and Bill Rammell, the former Labour Minister. But before we get stuck in, let's give you your 6 o'clock news headlines.
Very good evening. The top story tonight at 6. The Prince of Wales and the Prime Minister will attend the funeral of Pope Francis this Saturday, alongside world leaders including Donald Trump. The late pontiff, known as the Peace Pope, died on Easter Monday, aged 88, after a stroke. His body will lie in state at St Peter's Basilica from Wednesday, ahead of the funeral mass in the square. Sir Keir Starmer has called him a quite remarkable man and said his legacy of fairness will endure. Cardinal Nichols, who led a requiem mass in London, also said that Francis was filled with compassion, mercy and irrepressible hope. HMS Prince of Wales and earlier this afternoon, HMS Dauntless set sail from Portsmouth on one of the Royal Navy's largest deployments to date. Well, HMS Prince of Wales, the £3 billion aircraft carrier, set off to lead that multinational strike group to 40 countries across Europe, Asia and the Middle East. It's carrying up to 24 stealth jets, drones, helicopters and more than 1,600 personnel, all as part of Operation High Mast. Commanders say the ship is ready to switch to active operations if global events demand it. The mission will last 8 months, with all 2.5 UK military personnel expected back in time for Christmas. The government will publish for the first time the nationalities and crimes of foreign offenders living here in the UK. More than 19,000 foreign criminals were awaiting deportation at the end of last year, up since the Conservatives left office. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has ordered officials to release the data by the end of this year. Sources say the most common nationalities are Albanian, Romanian and Polish, with offences including drug production, theft and violent assault. Labour says it is taking action that the Tories failed to, while the Conservatives claim the government has buckled under pressure. Meanwhile, the Conservatives have announced plans to scrap non-crime hate incidents. Opposition leader Kemi Badenoch has proposed a new law to protect free speech that she says would ban police in almost all cases from collecting personal data where no crime has been committed.
This is really important because what we're seeing is a lot of police time being wasted on people not liking something they saw on social media. I think I saw one about a mobility scooter on a pavement. We've spent about 60,000 hours of police time on this when they should be out there catching real criminals. And this is one of those things which, when we were in government, we gave guidelines on how they should use these. The police have not followed them, so it's time to just get rid of them completely. The police should be focusing on real crime, not non-crime.
In other news tonight, Sir Keir Starmer no longer believes transgender women are women, according to his official spokesman. It comes after the Supreme Court ruled that under equalities law, a woman is defined by biological sex. The Prime Minister said the judgment brings much-needed clarity and welcomed protections for single-sex spaces. However, asked about using preferred pronouns, his spokesman declined to comment. Well, in the last few minutes, the Equality Minister Bridget Phillipson has been addressing the Commons following that Supreme Court ruling. She says it makes the law crystal clear and accused Kemi Badenoch of doing nothing during her time as Women and Equalities Minister.
Campaigned for decades on women's rights. I know more than most the importance of spaces for women. I fought for them, I delivered them, I ran them. And during my time running that refuge, while Labour was delivering the groundbreaking Equality Act, which this ruling confirms sets in law the basis for single-sex spaces, what was the leader of the opposition doing? She was busy hacking the website of the leading architect of the Equality Act, forever the keyboard warrior.
Kemi Badenoch, though, well, she hit back, accusing Labour of abandoning common sense in the rush to jump on the bandwagon.
I could not believe my eyes or my ears this afternoon. In 2021, the Prime Minister said it is not right to say only women have a cervix. In 2022, he said it is the law that trans women are women. In 2023, he said, and I quote, 99% of women don't have a penis. I know what a woman is, and I always have. Yeah. The people of this country know what a woman is. We didn't need the Supreme Court to tell us that, but this government did.
And just before I hand you back to Michelle, a quick piece of tech news for you. Instagram has launched tonight a new app called Edits. It looks to rival TikTok, which faces a potential ban in the United States unless it's sold by its Chinese owner ByteDance. Meta says that Edits will let users create and edit high-quality videos on their phones using powerful tools and data-driven insights. Unlike TikTok, though, the app won't include a social feed, but will act as a mobile video studio, they say. It comes, of course, as uncertainty grows over TikTok's future, with questions around whether China will allow a US sale, despite a 75-day extension from President Donald Trump. And there are, of course, plenty of other video editing apps as well. Those are the latest headlines. I'll be back with you in an hour. Now, though, it's over to Michelle.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much for that. And just what the world needs, isn't it, ladies and gents? And yet another social media feature. What do you make to all this stuff? Do you think we should spend a little bit too much time on our phones and social media? I certainly do. Anyway, look, I am Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co with you until 7 o'clock tonight. Esther McVeigh, the Conservative MP for Tatton, and Bill Rammell, the former Labour Minister, alongside. Good evening to both of you.
Good evening.
You're very welcome tonight. As are each and every single one of you, I hope you had a good Easter. Do let me know what you got up to. I was in a caravan in Skegness. I had a great time, but it's, of course, great to be back as well. Join the conversation in all the usual ways. Email me at gbviews@gbnews.com. Go to the website, gbnews.com/yoursay, or tweet or X me, despite the fact I was just complaining about spending too much time on social media. But you know what I mean. Look, we spoke at length, didn't we, last week about this Supreme Court judgment. Good, that's what I said. Common sense finally prevailing. But how embarrassing that it took the biggest court in the land to get involved to define the answer to that simple question, what is a woman? It is a little bit embarrassing that was required in the first place. But anyway, look, Bridget Phillipson, she has just been delivering a statement in the Commons, as you've just been hearing, criticising as well some of the goings-on from the protests at the weekend. Let's take a listen.
I know that the women who brought this challenge have not always been treated with the respect that they deserve. And this government believes in freedom of speech, and we believe in the fundamental right to protest. But in no way does that extend to criminal damage. There can be no excuse for defaced statues of feminist icons. Such acts seek to drag down the debate away from common sense, away from the sensible view held by the majority of the British public that women need single-sex spaces, that those spaces should be protected.
Well, that speech went on for quite a passage of time, actually. The essence of it was that many people, if you ask me, they're coming out now and saying, you know what, single-sex spaces, very important, and we've always stood for that. I won't even bore you. I could fill up my whole show with all these examples of people doing it literally the exact opposite, and they're all doing a very swift U-turn now. But anyway, Bill Rammell, your thoughts?
I wholly welcome the Supreme Court ruling. I think it's absolutely the right thing. I think for too long, extreme trans activists have bullied the system over this issue and excluded and marginalised the rights of women. So it's a very, very welcome result. However, trans people do have rights, and the job of government now is to develop guidelines as to what will happen to those trans individuals in terms of their access to toilets, to safe spaces, to hospital wards. And that's going to be a difficult process, but it's going to take time. We're going to have to be pragmatic. And it took us decades and decades and decades to get to this position with safe spaces for women being sacrosanct. It will take a bit of time to resolve those issues for trans people.
But correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I've missed something in the small print, but because I've been hearing a lot over the last few days about trans rights and so on. You know, no one's removed rights. No one's saying a trans person can't go to the toilet or can't go to a hospital ward. What rights are we talking about that people are potentially lost?
If you have transitioned and you've got a medical certificate to that effect, you are in a different category and you are arguably not going to want to go, and I'm talking about a woman transitioning to be a man, a man transitioning to be a woman, you're not going to want to go into the male toilets. That's the blunt reality of it. But for me, of paramount importance is we fought for decades for safe spaces for women. That had to be protected. That's what the Supreme Court has done. It's going to take a bit of time to resolve the issues for trans individuals.
Yeah, I was just about to say, don't get me started on the whole process of gender recognition. I am someone that does not believe that a £5 piece of paper makes you the opposite gender.
Do you know, Michelle, Theresa May, when she was Prime Minister in 2017, actually advocated self-identification without any medical intervention whatsoever. So all parties...
Yeah, but that is pathetic.
Yeah, but all parties have been on a journey on this issue. I'm just...
but all parties should look in the mirror, have a serious word with themselves. I mean, if I was Keir Starmer today, he came out, everyone was waiting with bated breath to see what he had to say on the matter. I would be so embarrassed if I was a politician or the Prime Minister of this country and I had to be told by a court what a woman was. I would literally be so embarrassed that I'd fallen for the bullying tactics of activist groups. I think I would probably have to hang my head in shame and resign from public life forever. But anyway,
some people might be hoping that happens. That didn't happen. Because I have to tell you, he's got the skin of a rhino, as has Philip Bridgenson, who was only saying the exact opposite only days ago. They're all gaslighting the country that they did think this. They've always thought this. No, they did a massive U-turn and they were advocating the exact opposite. They did not know what biological sex was. They were going down the gender sort of rabbit hole, but it is good news. I'm glad they've agreed biologically what a woman is. I mean, he's only, what, 62, 63, married to a woman, got a couple of kids, but it took a court ruling to tell him what a woman was. But what I think will be interesting to see, and I agree with you, Bill, actually, the practicalities, how are we going to deal with this? But actually, I think there's problems within the Labour Party, what we saw with the WhatsApp, those leaked messages that people like Chris Bryant, people like Angela Eagle are wanting to get this court ruling overturned. So what is he going to do there? He might say one thing, but is he going to let his party do another thing? What are they going to do? Are they apologising to Rosie Duffield, who basically they bullied out of the Labour Party for saying what a biological woman was? So I think there's a long way to go here, and I think the Labour Party won't just be the two-tier Labour Party. I think they will now be the two-faced Labour Party. I think they'll be talking about women in public, but behind the back they're going to try and contest this ruling.
Esther, let me ask you a question. When Theresa May advocated self-identification with no medical intervention in 2017, did you oppose it?
Yeah, I actually, if you remember, resigned from her cabinet. That was over Brexit. No, because I don't, she never said it to me, and I don't actually know if I was in government at the time, but I am somebody who's very straight, and when she was taking the wrong turn, which she did on Brexit,
okay.
I was no longer there in cabinet. I resigned.
OK, but the point I'm making is that all parties have got histories on this issue. However,
she tried to go down that route, but lots of people did not agree with her in the Conservative Party. But what I will say is...
She was Prime Minister at the time. But look, on the issue of Chris Bryant and others, I think what they were trying to do was to get the clarity on the rights of trans people subsequent to this ruling. If it's any more than that, then Keir Starmer will have to deal with it, and knowing him, I think he will.
No, they were saying it was an appalling judgment. They said they were leaving particular sort of bitterness to Baroness Faulkner, and they were looking at what they could do. They were meeting in Parliament this week, so let's see where it goes. But I do see a lot more trouble bubbling up for Labour on this. I don't think it is all over with that statement there.
One of the points that Kemi Badenoch was making as well in Parliament just a few minutes ago, in case you missed that, she was basically talking about gender ideology, and the fact, actually, it's everywhere, ladies and gents, particularly when you look at schools. I'm really opposed to that. Anyone that watches this programme will know about this. Schools should be teaching biological reality. In fact, they shouldn't be getting carried away with themselves, teaching children about gender ideology. I find it so wrong, and as I've ranted to you all about before, this is in primary schools. I've been to look at primary schools for my little boy, and it's in primary schools. Honestly, really, I really don't think it is a force for good. But look, I'll tell you what is good. Some good news. At last, this is good. We need optimism in this country, don't we? British Steel. I'll be updating you on that after the break.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I mean, it's an absolute first for science in the UK. Of course, it's not actually the first in the world. Actually, there have been 65 children born through womb transplants. But not only is this wonderful for the family concerned, and you know, what a sister, what an elder sister to donate her womb. But there's 15,000 women in the UK who suffer from this Mayer-Rokitansky-Kuster-Hauser syndrome, where they might have healthy ovaries, but unfortunately the womb doesn't work. Real ray of hope for them. The real hero here, I think, as well as the sister, is Professor Richard Smith from the Imperial NHS Trust. He spent 26 years developing this, started a charity, Womb Transplant UK. Wow. So this was all paid for through his charity. Doctors gave up their time for free. 17 hours of surgery, not for the faint-hearted, but lovely result.
And the baby is named after the sister, Amy, who donated her womb, and her middle name is Isabel, who's after the surgeon who essentially transplanted that womb. And to do that, you had to connect all of the tiny little blood vessels with minuscule stitches. I mean, it's incredible, isn't it?
It really is.
It is incredible. But, Anna, I put it to you, what would you say to people who would say, what is the point of this? Because you're not going to be able to provide this on the NHS. We can't afford to.
Well, as I said, that was one of my first thoughts, I have to say, when I was looking through this. And the fact that this professor has spent 26 years and actually started a charity. There are going to be a few more of these coming, but they're not going to be funded by the NHS. They are going to be funded by charity.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs and Co. Now, have you seen this footage today? Of course, the Pope, he in his open casket, and people paying their respects to him. I mean, I've got to say, this really shocks me. This news, actually, about the Pope. So it did, because, of course, we was discussing it for quite some time, that he was very sadly very ill. But, of course, he gave that Easter service. Many people were hoping that that would mean, Esther, that he was going to be turning a corner, but alas, sadly not.
They thought he'd rallied, didn't they? And they thought he was getting better, and so it did come as a huge shock to him and his 1.4 billion Catholic followers across the world, who will all, you know, be paying their respects in one way or another. I remember the Pope coming to Liverpool many years ago, and I went out to see him, stood at the end of the road. Yes, it would have been. It was a long time ago, but look, it means a lot to a lot of people. He has been, for so many people, their spiritual leader, their guider, and this is the world now paying the respects. And, you know, his funeral's Saturday morning, 9 o'clock our time. Prince William's now going out, Keir Starmer's going out, Donald Trump will be there.
Donald Trump,
I think the interesting thing is, I think he was actually a great pope in that he was a radical reformer. He reformed the Catholic Church. He spoke out for the poor and the dispossessed across the planet, and I think that was a good thing. The interesting thing will be who succeeds him, and Esther and I were just saying in the commercial break, we saw the great film Conclave, which is
what Ralph Fiennes going to
which features the really brutal politics that goes behind the selection of a new pope. So we've got all that to come in the next 10 days.
Well, I have to say, when I watched the film and I saw the selection for the next pope, I thought politicians could learn a thing or two by how Machiavellian they were choosing their next pope.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll be glued to during that next selection process, David Lammy's Twitter. I don't mean to be derogatory in any way, but I will never forget David Lammy. Do you remember that tweet, ladies and gents?
I do.
Where he basically was suggesting that conversations about the black smoke and the white smoke was somehow racist. I mean, what do we even say to that, ladies and gents? Of course, our respects there with the Pope. But look, moving on, because it is time that we have some good news in this country, isn't it? British Steel, we've spoken at length about that situation there. We're all familiar with it, but of course you'll know that there were consultations planned. Nearly 3,000 people to be at risk. Well, anyway, now that consultation has essentially been paused. This is great news, isn't it, Esther?
I think it's good news that we're saving jobs and an industry that we need for the United Kingdom. Absolutely, we need this sort of steel, whether it is for security, whether it's for key infrastructure. But I think this is a start of what are you going to do next. For me, what we have to do is get energy prices down. So this net zero fantasy that Ed Miliband and Labour are going on, they need to get rid of that now. We need to bring our energy prices down, because the only way really we can get that industry going again, a steel industry we need, is by having cheaper and much cheaper energy prices, because at the moment it's losing £700,000 a day, which you, me and every taxpayer now is going to be funding. So we're going to be funding their jobs, that industry, and paying energy prices 4 times the amount of America. That's what we've got to do, is get our energy prices down.
Forgive me, Esther, I think it's a tad simplistic to say that all the problems of an energy provider are down to net zero. There are many, many other factors, but I wholly...
But that's a major one. Come on.
It's one. There are many others. But I wholly welcome the government intervention to protect British steel. What's interesting politically about this, however, is there was a decades-long consensus, starting with Margaret Thatcher under successive governments, that privatisation was the way forward and you don't have nationalised industries. This, in a sense, and we've not yet got to nationalisation, but I think we probably will, this is a step in the other direction. What we need to be debating is how far, according to what guidelines and what price do we pay, because I don't think we can have a blanket commitment to renationalise everything, because it's bluntly not affordable.
What would be, just playing devil's advocate, you saying that moving to full nationalisation essentially should happen? Why?
Because I don't think there's going to be a private sector partner who will come on board to make it viable. I'd like there to be, because I would bluntly prefer that to the risks of the state taking this over, because the track record of the state running industries like this is not great. But I don't think there's going to be a private sector provider. And
so
therefore,
again, just devil's advocate, so why would you advocate nationalising as opposed to, you know, if it's not a viable going concern, well...
Because we would be the only G20 country without a pure steel industry. And when you look at our needs, whether it's transport, whether it's military, to make us exclusively accountable to international suppliers, I think would undermine our national interest.
I know, but I agree, by the way, so I'm just playing devil's advocate, but you could argue then when people might push back on that and say, but where do you draw the line then? Because if you want independent sovereignty, for example, on steel making, and I don't dispute that, why stop at steel? But why not keep going, and then where do you stop?
I mean, and that's exactly the point I'm making, that we need a reasoned and a proper debate about what are the limits. You know, I welcome what's happened on British Steel, but I wouldn't advocate whole-scale renationalisation, because I don't think it's the right way forward, and I don't think it's affordable.
Are you in Scunthorpe? And if so, how do you feel? You don't need to even be a steel worker to be affected by this. I don't know, you might have a cafe in the local area. This will mean a whole lot to you, I know that. Nigel Farage, he's been speaking out about net zero. He's saying that net zero is essentially like the new Brexit when it comes to the disconnection between Parliament and the British people. Do you agree with that?
I do. I think for too long this has been something that the metropolitan elite, really, Ed Miliband sort of typifies it all, away in their own little world about what they want to do and where they want to go, and this sort of religious journey that they've gone on with net zero, and they've never looked at the cost and the implications to the public and how it will impoverish us all. It always reminds me, Norman Tebbit question. The Norman Tebbit question was, would you like a Rolls Royce? And 99% of people all said, yes, I'd love a Rolls Royce. Then he said, would you like a Rolls Royce if it meant you had to sleep in a tent for the rest of your life in order to afford it? And then all of a sudden 99% said they didn't want it. So when they asked these questions, and politicians did, do you want net zero? And most people said yes. They never explained what it meant, that it would impoverish people. They never explained also that the UK is only 1% of these emissions. And actually, nobody who purports and wants net zero can ever tell you what the global climate temperature would change by if the UK got to net zero. And they also said the UK could lead the way. We've been leading the way for 35 years and no other country has wanted to follow us because they realised we were on a journey to being impoverished. So yes, Nigel is correct. This is something that the politicians are just so far removed from reality.
But the polling evidence just doesn't back you up.
But that's why I gave you the Norman Tebbit question, because that explained it all.
Evidence. The last YouGov poll, 61% to 24% people back net zero.
Well, what was the question asked?
Are you in favour of net zero?
Exactly.
But you need to take people with you, and it needs to be done proportionally. But I tell you what, you quote Nigel Farage, he is utterly misleading people. He said at the weekend that he wants us to be self-sufficient in gas and oil. That is for the birds. You look at the detailed research, regardless of government policy, we're going to be 96% dependent on gas imports by 2050. So what do? We have to build up renewables, which gives us cheaper energy, and it also gives us greater energy security, and that's what this is about.
Yeah, but we haven't done that. We haven't done it in a coherent way that you might be building up your ability through technology, through resilience, through sort of moving forward with renewables, but you also keep what you've got under the ground, your oil and your gas, and we should be using that because it's undropping. No, we're not actually. We're not using the reserves we've got. We're closing down gas fields. We're not actually using what we can do. No,
it's
and
new
what we've done
that have been bad,
yeah,
not existing
which is
production.
bonkers as well. And so what we're doing is we are increasing what we bring in from abroad. I think it was like £20 billion we imported in gas from foreign countries, which is up 300% on years before. We shouldn't be doing that. We should use what is under our own feet to make us resilient. We need secure energy, we need affordable energy and reliable energy. We've got it under our feet, and I'm afraid we're not using it.
If there's a consensus between us about renewables, why then did the last Conservative government ban wind power? You know, we ought to be focusing on renewables as the way forward to give us cheaper prices and greater energy security.
Look, I say use what you've got that you know you've got, and it's not some pie-in-the-sky theory. At the moment, we should be using our oil and gas reserves and looking for technology going forward. But please, let's not get off. Please, let's just not get away from the net zero question. The net zero question was, Nigel Farage said, is this the new Brexit question? Is it that the political elite are out of touch with the needs of the public? And the answer is yes. I have said for many years to my own party and to the Labour Party, please get Ronnie real. Our energy prices are the most expensive in the world because you've gone off on some net zero fallacy.
If Nigel wants to get real about Brexit, he might look at the polling evidence that a clear majority of people, by about 10%, now regret Brexit. Now, that's not the government's policy. Frankly, I wish it was to return at least to the customs union, but the public have clearly turned their back on Brexit because they see the evidence of the downsides.
I will go back to the Norman Tebbit question. You ask a question, you've got to put it in the context, give everybody the full evidence. Lots of people would like to see Brexit delivered what they wanted, starting with immigration and closing down, reducing those numbers straight away, getting control of your borders.
Well, there you go. Speaking of control of borders, or lack of, should I say, finally, it seems that common sense will prevail, ladies and gents, because many people, I've got to say, Rupert Lowe, among one of the loudest voices on this issue, have demanded for a very long time that when it comes to crime data, you should associate that with the nationalities of people committing said crimes. It looks like that finally will now happen. Good. But why did it take so long? We'll discuss after the break.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
It was a bit of a mixed picture for many of us over the bank holiday weekend, and there are still some showers around, particularly across parts of Madeira, the Canary Islands too, though perhaps some sunnier spells here. But it is looking a little bit drier across parts of Spain and Portugal on Wednesday. Still plenty of showers on offer though for parts of Italy, Greece and Turkey as well. Temperatures for most of us in the high teens or low 20s. The best of the temperatures over the next couple of days, definitely across the Canary Islands, with highs here of 24 or 25 degrees.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Currently, the A9 at Crewburnmoor faces restrictions in both directions due to ongoing planned maintenance. On the M4 westbound at junction 37 Pyle, resurfacing work has led to a road closure, with diversions in place. In Warrington, motorists on the M6 southbound near junction 21A are experiencing a 10-minute delay. In Kent, there is a broken-down vehicle on the M20 eastbound between junction 3 and junction 4, affecting one lane. Normal traffic conditions are expected between 7 and 7:15 this evening. Stay up to date at gbnews.com. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Hello everybody, Michelle Dewberry till 7 o'clock. Esther McVeigh, the Tory MP for Tatton, and Bill Rammell, the former Labour minister, alongside me. Look, Lee, one of my viewers, says Michelle Net Zero is going to bankrupt the UK. It is that simple. Why, he says, do people not get it? Nigel says we could be zero tomorrow, net zero tomorrow, Michelle. It wouldn't make any difference to global warming in the grand scheme of things because everyone else seems to be just doing whatever it is that they want to do. Jules says, Michelle, if someone asked me, do I want to make compromises essentially to achieve net zero, the answer would be no, thank you. And that is the point, isn't it? Yeah, if you ask everyone, do you believe in net zero? Everyone's going to say, yeah, you know what, do what you can for the climate. The key question is, and are you willing to sacrifice, whether that's financially or lifestyle-wise or whatever, to achieve that aim? You can ponder that at your will. But look, we speak, don't we, about the need for common sense on this programme. Often delighted today to announce that it seems that we might be getting some, because many people have said for a very long time that we should have nationality data alongside crime data. It seems that that's going to happen. Take a listen to Robert Jenrick.
So some good news just in. Almost exactly a year since I tabled an amendment to force the publication of data on crime by nationality. It looks like it's finally going to happen. The cover-up is coming to an end.
Good, because we don't like cover-ups, do we? Esther McVeigh, what do you think?
I think it's good news. I think Robert there had pursued the issue for some time, so he should take this as a win. Yvette Cooper will no doubt be taking it for a win as well, to make sure that the Home Office were bringing this data forward. And we really do need to know the criminality by ethnicity, because I think it's a whole set of questions that flow from that. So who are they? Where are they? How are we now removing them from the country? When will we be removing them from the country? I think it gives us a lot of things to be working with there. And I also know from my Chief Constable in Cheshire that they are really concerned about the serious sexual assaults that are being done by foreign national sort of criminals, and that is their concern. There has been a different type of criminality, a different level of brutality in that criminality, and a greater percentage of it done by people from certain nationalities.
Bill Rammell?
Well, if Robert Jenrick, as he did, tabled that a year ago, he tabled it under a Tory government and it wasn't accepted. It is being accepted and it's being taken forward by Yvette Cooper. I think it's the right thing. My understanding is she's overridden the objections of Home Office officials, and that is welcome. And I think it's important because transparency will give reassurance that the issue is being dealt with seriously. And the reality is that this government, only 9 months into power, is deporting foreign criminals at a rate that simply wasn't seen under the last government. The last figures are up by about 16%, but we need to go further. So it's a wholly welcome decision, but there's not a read across to migrants more generally. If you look at the figures, there is no evidence that migrants commit crimes at greater rates than indigenous.
What figures?
Well, can I also... I think
all the research that's been undertaken, in fact, some research studies actually suggest that migrants commit less crimes per 10,000 than do indigenous Brits.
Well, I will, as I said, question that again, because I've seen the figures for Cheshire and they're probably a multiple of, 3 times, and these are serious sexual offences.
You've got figures for migrants?
Serious sexual offences by foreign nationals who are committing serious sexual offences in the Cheshire area, yes.
That's not the same thing as the proportion of migrants.
And this is the proportion. No, but this is the proportion of acts that are being committed by a certain group of people, and it is higher than the indigenous population.
Well, I'm not disbelieving you, Esther, but my understanding is that, and that's why Home Office officials have resisted it, that they're not able to give those figures, and that's what Yvette is now driving through.
And I agree, that's why it's a positive thing, because otherwise we've only got anecdotal information. Now we'll have the proper data. And equally, the other thing I will do, you have to give credit to Rishi Sunak, who did the Albanian deal to make sure now that these foreign criminals are being deported. So yes, it's happening now, but actually that deal was done before Yvette Cooper.
I will acknowledge that. Of course, the information as well will give the police the ability and the insight to target criminals, because, a lot of them do congregate according to their nationalities.
And some are waiting to be deported, and I think again this means it needs to be speeded up. I think there's a whole lot of information and actions that flow from one who is committing the crime. Why are they still in this country? They need to be the first people getting out straight away. So I think from that, maybe that's why the Home Office officials, who shouldn't have that much power, weren't handing over the data, but why we do need this clarity more than ever.
I'm just looking at a write-up of some data, and I've got to be honest, one of the problems with this is there's so many gaps in the data, so you can't really, it's quite hard to get a clear picture. But on this write-up from the data, it says 2 nationalities, Afghans and Eritreans, were more than 20% more likely to account for sexual offence convictions than British citizens. Overall, foreign nationals were 71% more likely than Brits to be responsible for sex crime convictions. That's according to The Telegraph a few weeks ago.
So that fits in with my Cheshire sort of information on the serious sexual
Yeah, but I mean, I don't mean to be funny, but you don't need to be like some kind of top-level statistician to be able to calculate the fact that if you import goodness knows how many men from cultures that literally do not respect women, you are going to receive an uptick in crimes, particularly against women. It's not really rocket science, is it, ladies and gents? But anyway, let's see what all of this data shows. But the data is only one part of it, because when you've got this data, what happens next then? Rupert Lowe, an MP that I've got to say I do admire, he says the next aim is to get a full nationality breakdown for those claiming universal credit and other benefits. He says, let's see who is living off the British taxpayer and where they have come from. I think it'll be very interesting, won't it, ladies and gents, to have a full picture of the true cost of immigration into this country, whatever that may be. But I would ask you the question at home, do you think then that the current crop of politicians have got the chops to actually then have the difficult conversations off the back of what that data will show us? You can be the judge of that. Look, after the break, the Conservatives have called for non-crime hate incidents to be banned. Again, just basic common sense, isn't it? Do you agree or not?
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, it's going to be quite a wet start across parts of the southeast and elsewhere. Fairly cloudy day with some showers, though it's still going to be feeling warm and pleasant where you catch any brighter interludes. And it's turning unsettled through this evening and overnight, all thanks to low pressure, eventually sweeping in cloud and outbreaks of rain. Now, through this evening, outbreaks of rain could be quite heavy at times, particularly across any hilly areas, and turning fairly blustery too, particularly around exposed coasts. But behind it, turning clear, just a little bit showery across southern parts of Wales, parts of the southwest, and across Scotland, northern parts of England. It should be mostly dry, some clearer skies at times, which means it's going to turn a little bit chillier here, but elsewhere it's going to be a mostly mild night as a result of all the cloud and rain. So across central parts of the southeast, those outbreaks of rain continuing, still a little heavy at times and still fairly blustery. Showers set to continue across Devon and Cornwall. But for Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, a largely dry start to the day. Plenty of clear and bright spells to start too. Across Scotland, we'll see a mix of cloud and some brighter spells, a chance of some showers, particularly across the Northern Isles. Some longer spells of rain here. So rain set to continue across central and southeastern parts through the morning, eventually fizzling out, but it's going to leave behind some cloud. Still a chance of some light outbreaks of rain. But across Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland, northern England, a few sunnier spells here, but still a risk of showers, particularly in the west, and the odd one or two turning rather heavy. But in the brighter spells, still feeling pleasant for the time of year. Highs around 17, possibly 18 degrees Celsius. Now into Thursday, once again a fairly cloudy start, particularly around North Sea coast, but most cloud burning back through the course of the morning, allowing some brighter spells to develop. But once again a change on its way from the west, more cloud feeding in here, and eventually we'll see outbreaks of rain. And for the rest of the week, it's the wettest in the west, but still plenty of dry weather and temperatures improving day by day. Bye-bye.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, Michelle Dewberry, Esther McVeigh and Bill Rammell with you till 7 o'clock. We were just talking about what I would call the common sense idea that actually you would add nationality to crime figures. Jim, one of my viewers, says, Michelle, do you really trust these people to release the actual figures as they are? That's $1 million question, Jim. And I know that a lot of people don't actually have trust in our politicians. But you know what I say? Give them a chance. Give them a chance. We're moving in the right direction, don't you think? And speaking of right directions, another one, we're on a roll, common sense roll. And I just reminded myself in the break as well, Esther McVeigh was indeed the Minister for Common Sense.
You see, you've got me in and look what's happening.
I know, look what's happening. You're rubbing off.
Common sense is flowing.
You're also going to say Bill Rammell was never the Minister for Common Sense.
I would never be so rude.
An apprentice. He's on the journey to common sense.
Did you have business cards that said Minister for Common Sense?
No, I didn't. Just a cabinet office on it, because that's what it was. It was a although I got the nickname, as it was from the media, of common sense, it was the job which was cabinet office, but without portfolio. Mandelson had it, Ken Clarke had it, I then had it.
Right, well, we don't sniff at common sense on this programme,
no.
do we? This is the next story. I like it. We're on a roll for a long time, ladies and gents. We've needed a little bit of common sense in this country, haven't we? Now, non-crime hate incidents. Do you think it's time that they are scrapped? The Tories are apparently pushing for this to happen. They have had a bit of pushback, though, today, because this kind of came about off the back of Stephen Lawrence, a situation, of course, we all know we're familiar with there. So people are saying about the timing of this, bringing this out today, is a little bit unfortunate, shall we say. But the essence, the principle of it, what do you think to that, Esther?
I agree. It's in the name, isn't it? It's a non-crime hate incident, and we need police looking at crimes and going after criminals, not non-crime. So I think it's right that we are doing this. It's interesting how it was never passed in Parliament, this non-crime hate incident. It was in the sort of the police guidance, and it's sort of grown and grown and grown. And whilst it might have started off with good intentions to see if they could, again, look at the data, analyse what was going on, where they could see maybe things bubbling up and maybe stopped it, but they never did any of that. And now police time is taken on these sort of nonsensical, I don't know, WhatsApp messages, what people are saying in playgrounds, instead of getting on with things like robberies, burglaries and violent acts. So I think it's right that Kemi's doing this.
Bill?
Forgive my cynicism, you know, this came about in 1999. The Tories were in power for 14 years and never once said they were going to ban non-crime hate incidents. And the Home Office makes an argument that it allows you to track the trends of things that could develop into real crimes. There may be an argument for that, but however, I have become convinced this is not working, and I've wholly lost faith in the police to act with proportionality and reason in the management of these cases. We're also living in an era, whether we like it or not, where too many people think they have an inalienable right not to be offended and will therefore put in spurious complaints under this remit. So I wouldn't go as far as banning it, but I would radically overhaul the guidance to police so that you dramatically reduce the numbers.
But those trends that police were meant to be looking at, I think all the police forces said they'd never done that, so they weren't using it for the purpose then they thought they were going to use it for. And what it became is a greater priorities. Cases? Well, that's what I'm saying, they shouldn't be, and that's why it's right that Kemi's sort of banning it. But like I said, it's in the name, isn't it? It's a non-crime.
What about
we want
Bill's
police
point
doing
then?
crime.
What about Bill's point that it's all well and good Kemi saying it today and everyone will support that as common sense, but why wasn't it scrapped previously?
Because it didn't really bubble up into a big issue when you look about it until the 2020s, and actually it was in 2023 they did, the Conservative government, try and give better guidance. Right. Like I said, this wasn't in Parliament, this is the guidance for the police. So they tightened up that guidance, but it didn't do enough, and now they are saying that we're going to get rid of it. So is it too late? Yes, I would have done it earlier. I don't doubt that at all. But is it right that they're doing it? Absolutely it is. And even if it's the Tories have got to say it and maybe Labour will follow suit, that's fine. But we've got to stop this now. You can't have 6 police arriving at a door because of a WhatsApp message when crime is happening up the road and nobody's doing anything about it.
But look, there may not be a million miles between us, because actually Badenoch is saying that she would ban it, but not in all circumstances, that where the chief police officer says there's real merit in recording a case, they would do so. To me, that sounds like you dramatically revise the guidelines, and I would be in favour of that, and I hope the government picks that up.
But that's what they tried to do in 2023. They did tighten it, and it didn't work. I think you've got a whole group, maybe, of police who found it easier to do than actually fighting crime, doing non-crime hate incidents, and we've got to clamp down on their training.
Do you know, I think it's a bit more complicated than that, but yeah.
Oh, it is. It always is.
Do you remember north of the border? Do you remember in Scotland they had that hate monster? It's just popped back into my brain. I wish I thought of that and I would have got a clip for it. Do you remember that? It was like the monster basically saying about feeding your bad thoughts or something. It was all very, very bizarre, wasn't it, ladies and gents? Look, one of my viewers has got in touch. We was mentioning the Easter holidays at the start of the programme. Amanda says, never mind all the news. I've never been to Skegness. Would you recommend it? Yes, Amanda. Yes, Yes, I would. Get yourself in a caravan. You'll have a great time. Anyway, look, that's all I've got time for. Thanks, panel. Thanks to you at home. See you tomorrow night.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, it's going to be quite a wet start across parts of the southeast and elsewhere. Fairly cloudy day with some showers, though it's still going to be feeling warm and pleasant where you catch any brighter interludes. And it's turning unsettled through this evening and overnight, all thanks to low pressure, eventually sweeping in cloud and outbreaks of rain. Now, through this evening, outbreaks of rain could be quite heavy at times, particularly across any hilly areas, and turning fairly blustery too, particularly around exposed coasts. But behind it, turning clear, just a little bit showery across southern parts of Wales, parts of the southwest, and across Scotland, northern parts of England. It should be mostly dry, some clearer skies at times, which means it's going to turn a little bit chillier here, but elsewhere it's going to be a mostly mild night as a result of all the cloud and rain. So across central parts of the southeast, those outbreaks of rain continuing, still a little heavy at times and still fairly blustery. Showers set to continue across Devon and Cornwall, but for Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, a largely dry start to the day. Plenty of clear and bright spells to start too. Across Scotland, we'll see a mix of cloud and some brighter spells, a chance of some showers, particularly across the Northern Isles, some longer spells of rain here. So rain set to continue across central and southeastern parts through the morning, eventually fizzling out, but it's going to leave behind some cloud. Still a chance of some light outbreaks of rain. But across Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland, northern England, a few sunnier spells here, but still a risk of showers, particularly in the west, and the odd one or two turning rather heavy. But in the brighter spells, still feeling pleasant for the time of year. Highs around 17, possibly 18 degrees Celsius. Now into Thursday, once again a fairly cloudy start, particularly around North Sea coast, but most cloud burning back through the course of the morning, allowing some brighter spells to develop. But once again a change on its way from the west, more cloud feeding in here, and eventually we'll see outbreaks of rain. And for the rest of the week, it's the wettest in the west, but still plenty of dry weather and temperatures improving day by day. Bye-bye.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M4 is closed in both directions due to an incident between Junction 22 at Pilning and Junction 23 at Rogier. In South Gloucestershire, all lanes are currently closed eastbound between Junction 23 and Junction 21 following a road traffic collision. Motorists using the A9 at Crubenmore should exercise caution due to continuous planned maintenance affecting both directions. On Essex's A12 northbound, a road traffic collision has resulted in one lane closure between Junction 16 and Junction 17. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation